You go talk to the guy that only does investments, and all you're going to hear about is Wall Street, and here's where you need to put all of your money. You go talk to the guy that sells insurance, and the only thing he's going to talk about is life insurance and annuities. And you go to the bank, and all they're going to talk about is CDs and give us your money at a really low rate. And then on the back end, they're trying to lend you your same money at a much higher interest rate. You can use the tax code to your favor and not have it working against you. And then the last thing, when we all die, your money's going to go in one of three places. It's going to go to the government, it's going to go to your family and those that you love, or it's going to go to a favorite charity. That's really kind of where it all ends up, in three buckets, when it's simple questions that everyone wants to know. Do I have enough? Where's my income come from? How do I manage my investments? Where's this all going to go at the end? I really want to go to those that I love.
You are entering lifestyle dentist territory, where healthy, wealthy, generous dentists choose to live epic lives on their terms with freedom and fulfillment. I'm your host, Dr. Garth Hatch. Buckle up for another exciting episode. Hey there, lifestyle dentists. I am really looking forward to this podcast with the one and the only Ryan Thacker. He is an expert in financial planning. He is a fiduciary, which we're going to cover that a little bit more so people understand the difference between a financial planner and a fiduciary, because there is a big difference. Most financial planners are not fiduciaries, for better or worse, and so something you should be aware of. He's also a good friend. Both were in Mutual Mastermind. For me, just gave me some amazing ideas to help me reach my financial freedom blueprint and do it much faster. And so grateful for that. In a position where he no longer needs to work, he can live an amazing lifestyle without working another day in his life, and even live an awesome lifestyle without working a day in his life, but he enjoys what he does. And I am respectful of that too, because just like I don't like to take physical fitness advice from a physician that's fat and drinking his big gulp, I also don't like to take financial advice from somebody who's barely pay the bills. And so Ryan lives what he preaches, and he and his brother Tyson have a very successful business, Boss Retirement, which I'll let you dive into that a little more too, but we'll just jump right in. But Ryan, honestly, I know you don't have to be here, but thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Oh, you bet. Garth, we've been talking about this for a little while and planning on getting this on the schedule. And I just value our friendship and the relationship that we've had. We met, like you said, in the mastermind. And what I love about you too is you practice what you preach, and you live that in all areas of your life. And not only, I think wealth is way more than just financial. I look at 5 areas of my life. I look at faith, I look at fitness, I look at family, I look at friends, and last of all, I look at finances. And so it's just been really fun getting to know you and watching your journey and what you've done. And man, you've built a tremendous following. So just excited to be able to have a conversation and talk about what matters most.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Sure appreciate that, my friend. Well, awesome. Well, let's just dive in real quick and get to know, who is Ryan Thacker. Like most of us, you weren't born with a silver spoon, from what I understand. You had your bumps and bruises on your journey. We're both fellow BYU fans and BYU alumni. And so would you mind kind of going through a little bit on your background and then kind of what led to Boss Retirement?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Utah. My brother's my business partner. We shared a bedroom growing up, and we are serial entrepreneurs. Really what we love most is we love looking at challenges and saying, how can we fix this? How can we make this better? I mean, that's really what our passion is. And what led us to this business with Boss Retirement Solutions. And by the way, BOSS is an acronym. It stands for Build the Optimal System of Security. So when you think about your lifestyle, being able to live that, most people want to know that that's going to be secure. They want to know that, it's going to be in a good place. And honestly, we've been in financial services industry our entire career. Our dad came to us. He was 65 years old. Our dad was a barber. My dad's goal, he said, as a barber was to figure out how to not have to cut my hair in retirement. He definitely succeeded. Since he in 2006, he's never one time cut my hair. But here's what I love is my dad came to us, and because we were the numbers guys in the family, there's 7 kids. I'm number 6, Tyson's number 5. And he said, hey, I'm really confused. I've been paying into Social Security. I'm going to retire at 70. I don't really know how to take it. What's going to be the best way? And he said, I've got this IRA, and I don't want to pay more taxes than I need to on my IRA. And then I've got this piece of real estate. I'm not sure. Should I sell it now? The house is older. Should we downsize? Should we get into something better? Should we remodel? And so that was what I call really the genesis of what happened. Our dad was the first Boss Retirement Blueprint that we ever did. Now we've helped over 50,000 families make an informed decision on how and when to take Social Security. And so, but I always just think solving problems starts with those that we love most, right? And I love that our first blueprint that we ever did was for our dad, and we didn't understand anything about Social Security. In fact, we hired this financial advisor that was really well known, and he did this big intake, and we said, hey, what we were doing is we said, here's our scenario. We want to understand how to maximize Social Security. We were really trying to figure it out for our dad because we had no clue. And he said, good, pay me $3,500. And my brother and I were looked at each other like, okay, we'll split it. We'll split the planning fee of $3,500. And he's like, no, both of you need to write it. So we paid $7,000 for this financial plan. It came back in a beautiful leather binder. It was 93 pages of boilerplate, and it said absolutely nothing. And so it didn't answer the Social Security questions, didn't answer the investment questions that we had. And so that was really the genesis. That was in 2001. And since then, it's just been a tremendous ride. We're fortunate that we've taken that, we've created the Boss Retirement Blueprint, which is a one-page planning system that helps you look at the things that really matter most when it comes to your finances in plain language. Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. And we love that quote because, when it comes to you and your retirement, most people, if they have a choice between complex and simple, they're going to choose simple. And one of our superpowers is taking very complex things and making it simple. We've boiled retirement planning down into one page. It's going to cover those areas, like the most important area. Where's my income going to come from when I retire? When in your case, as you listen to a lot of your community, I've had this practice that I've built and I put blood, sweat, and tears into it. And, maybe I'll sell it, be able to sell it to private equity. Maybe I'll pass it on to a family member. Maybe I'll get some other practitioners in helping, whatever that is. You need to understand the day you exit, where's your income going to come from?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that foundation starts with Social Security. So we look at income. And then, of course, we're going to look at the investments. What do we need to have as far as growth to make sure that our money lasts as long as we do? I mean, no one wants to be 85 years old, full life, and flat broke. That was nobody's plan. But unfortunately, many people in America, that's what they're going to face. They're going to be living in their kid's basement. And then we're going to look at taxes. Mm-hmm. Taxes are one of those big areas that if you really understand, you realize you can use the tax code to your favor and not have it working against you. And then the last thing, when we all die, your money's going to go in one of three places. It's going to go to the government, it's going to go to your family and those that you love, or it's going to go to a favorite charity. I mean, that's really kind of where it all ends up, in three buckets when you finally pass away. So what we've done is we've been fortunate by looking at it's simple questions that everyone wants to know. Do I have enough? Where's my income going to come from? How do I manage my investments? Mm-hmm. Where's this all going to go at the end? So I really want it to go to those that I love, not to things that I'm not interested in, or I want it to go to my favorite charity. Those things is what we've built Boss Retirement Solutions and Advisors on. We're fortunate we've been on the Inc. 5000 list 5 times as one of America's fastest growing companies. In the state of Utah, where we're based, we've been the Best of State award winner for retirement planning and investments for the 10 consecutive awards. And so it's just been a fun journey. It's just been a really fun journey. And now we're expanding out. We also have 2 offices in Seattle. We have 8 offices in Utah. We have 2 offices in Seattle and then an office in Boise, Idaho. But just real simple, Garth. We believe that if you give good information to good people and help them make great decisions, you can solve a lot of problems, make a lot of friends. And our number one measurement that we do is how many neighbors have we served? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what we measure every year. And it's just really fun. We enjoy it.
That's awesome. No, that's so cool. I want to go, if it's okay with you, in 2 directions. First, just from a business standpoint, because you are a phenomenal businessman. You're probably not going to brag about yourself, but I will. I know the business you've created is, like you said, I mean, the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies. You've had offers, if you're okay with me saying, just in the 9 figures for people that would like to buy your business, and you have no desire to sell right now. And so you and your brother have done some amazing things very well. What maybe just some general business lessons have you learned that could help any business, including somebody that's trying to grow their dental practice? What are some different business concepts that either you learned the hard way or the easy way, I guess?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. We could spend a whole podcast on this, but I really look at business from a simple standpoint. Number one is you've got to solve somebody's problem, and there's 2 important components there. Number one, you need to solve a problem that somebody needs your help on. That's an important piece. Like Social Security for us, we help people optimize their Social Security. They've been paying into it for their entire lives, maybe 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. That's your money. Let's get the most out of it. Let's optimize it. And unfortunately, the average person leaves about $182,000 on the table that they don't take from their Social Security benefit, simply because they take it at the wrong time and they don't know how to do it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, this is the magic one, Garth. You need to have a solution and solve a problem that people want. And the first version of Boss Retirement Solutions, we went to the 30 and 40-year-olds, and we learned a really expensive marketing lesson that 30 and 40-year-olds think retirement is 3.5 decades away,
Yeah.
if they're 30 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're focused on other things. And it's not, you're building a family, you're building a practice, you're building these different things. And what we found is the 30-year-old was more interested in the bigger car,
Mhm.
the better car, the house, upgrading the house, or taking their kids to Disneyland than they were about thinking retirement. So they needed what we had.
Mhm.
And we truly believe that part of our mission is eventually we can help solve the retirement planning crisis in America with what we do. But then you need to want it. And here's what really changed for our business is we looked in the mirror and said, if we're not getting a lot of traction with 30 and 40-year-olds, who is it that really needs our help and wants our help? And it's the 55 to 70-year-olds, because they wake up, a 55-year-old wakes up one morning, looks in the mirror and realizes, holy cow, where did all the time go? I'm 10 years out from retiring. What is this going to look like? And now all of a sudden, not only they need what we have, but they want what we have. And they really value good advice. We think you're the hero. I mean, we think that the client's the hero. You're the one that has built the practice of, you've gotten the education, you built the practice, you've served really, really well your community with whatever services that you're offering. And you don't want to leave this to chance. And so I think that's number one. Number two is you need to understand how to connect with people. And we've been fortunate. I was on TV in New York City on Fox Business, and somebody saw us. And it was one of those, it was back in 2013, and it was my first national TV appearance. And
That's
it was
awesome.
not very good. I stayed up all night. I was so nervous. And Lauren Simonetti from Fox is the one who interviewed us. And we had these talking points that we were all prepared for. And she got on and they put this mic up and they're coming out of our commercial break and it's 3, 2, 1 and you're live. And she didn't ask the question that we had talked about. So, and my kids love watching this video. It's like, I've got this deer in the headlight looks like, what are you talking about? And the opening question, I'll never forget the opening question. It was a leading question. And she said, you need at least $1 million to retire. Isn't that right? And I'm like, no, that's not right. It depends on your lifestyle. You may need 10 million. If your lifestyle is high, you may need 10 million. Or if you have Social Security and you have a pension, you may need 250,000 to retire. This really depends on what your lifestyle. And that's what I love about your work, Garth, is it comes down to lifestyle. And what is that lifestyle that helps you? What are your fears? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And, from a marketing standpoint, as you build a practice, you need people to sit in your chairs. You need people to be able to help. And marketing is the lifeblood of any business. And I think that as you look at growing your business, the question should always be, how can I connect with more people that I can solve that problem that they have? And we've been fortunate in our careers to we don't care what the medium is. We don't care if it's a podcast. We don't care if it's a TV show that we have. We don't care if it's a radio show that we have. We don't care if it, whatever the medium, we just want to help people and we want to connect with people. And that's the core. Once I think the first two, Jesus said, what are the two great commandments? Love God, love your neighbor. And I'm fortunate that I work in a business that I can love my neighbor. As I help them solve some of the biggest challenges that are out there when it comes to how do I make my money last as long as I do, and how do I live the lifestyle that I don't run out of money, and how do I make sure that I can have a secure and independent retirement.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Well, and you hit the nail on the head with all the F's that you mentioned, as far as family and faith and your fitness and your finances, and the other F that was there, I probably missed one, but
friends.
Yeah, friends. And yes, your friends, your friendships. Yeah, those relationships, and how all of those things are important with probably finances toward the bottom, if not the bottom. And yet, if that's off, it affects everything else. It affects all the other F's because you're stressed. You can't give your focus to God or your family or your friends or your fitness because you're like, how am I going to support myself? How am I going to support my family? And I've got 5 years to retirement or 10 years to retirement, and I don't know how I'm going to get there. So yeah, it's so true. It's so true. With that said too, because I know you guys have an amazing blueprint, and that really is, I think, one of the core strengths of why you guys have done so well is because you do break down complex scenarios and make them simple, because that's not common. And as you know, in the financial realm, they want to be as complex as possible so that people think, oh, this is the only way I can understand that is I've got to just give my money to somebody because I can't figure it out myself, which I also don't agree figuring out yourself, because you need experts, but you need to at least have a basic understanding. And if you can have somebody that can really explain things simply, you can have your own say and be part of that process, but also be guided to make good decisions, by somebody. And so let me step one back about because the fiduciary, because I think that is important to understand too. What's the difference between a fiduciary and a financial planner?
It's real simple. A fiduciary puts your interest first in front of everything else. And when you look at the industry, you have to ask, to whom do I listen to for advice? And in the financial services world, there's all of these different camps. For example, you go talk to the guy that only does investments, and all you're going to hear about is Wall Street, and here's where you need to put all of your money. You go talk to the guy that sells insurance, and the only thing he's going to talk about is life insurance and annuities. And you go to the bank, and all they're going to talk about is CDs and give us your money at a really low rate. And then on the back end, they're trying to lend you your same money at a
Yeah,
much higher
right.
interest rate.
Right.
We're gonna pay you 1%. We're going to charge you 6% on your loan, right?
Yeah.
And so a fiduciary, what I really look at is the person that you're talking to. Number one, are they living the principles that they teach? The joke is, on Wall Street, the only person that rides in a Rolls Royce and listens to the guy that rides in on the subway that's broker than him. That's the word broker, right? They're broker than you. And so I think finding somebody that really truly lives, and that's what I love about what you do, Garth, is just watching you live the principles that you talk about. And I think some people want to talk about having a lifestyle, but they really don't have a lifestyle. And I think you're a great example of that. And I think when you look at the financial services industry, what I would recommend, just one of the easiest filter questions, is tell me what your license background is. That's a good starting point. If they say I'm only insurance licensed, or they say I'm only licensed as an investment advisor, you're going to hear whatever camp that they are. A true fiduciary is going to be dual licensed, have all the licenses so that they can say, okay, this is not a one size fits all when we create your plan. It's based off of what are your goals, what are your hopes, what are your dreams, and what do you want to do? And in the product, we say we're product agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really care what the solution is. We want to match that to what your goals and dreams are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's use a little bit of an example here. If you've paid into Social Security and you go to ssa.gov, and you can pull your whole earnings history. So you can see your earnings history, and it's always a good thing to check. Let's say you're 45 years old. I would be looking at my earnings records and make sure it's been reported correctly to Social Security, because that's going to depend on what your check is.
Mm-hmm.
But you get that, and you say, okay, I'm going to retire and I need $10,000 a month to pay for my lifestyle. Well, let's say that your Social Security pays $5,000 a month between you and your spouse. Where's the other $5,000 a month going to come from? Most people think, oh, I've just saved all this money. I've got $1 million in my 401k. This is going to be magic, and here's how it works. Well, if you take $5,000 a month and you times that by 12, that's $60,000 a year. I can tell you, if you're pulling out 6% of your $1 million, you will run out of money, and especially with inflation. And so you have to think about, what does that picture look like when I go into retirement? And, when you start looking at that and having that conversation, I think most people, they skip right over the income piece. It's not like, it's the weirdest phenomenon, Garth, because when we talk about income, people skip right over it. They want to go right to the investments. We're like, hey, slow down. Let's just step back. Let's just imagine you're retiring today. You need $10,000 a month to pay for your lifestyle. You got $5,000 coming from Social Security. Where's the rest going to come from? Mm-hmm. And there's just like this deer in the headlight looks. Like, most people don't have a pension anymore. I mean, it's less than 20% of Americans have a pension. And if you've definitely owned your own independent practice, your pension is your business.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
pension is your business that you've built. And if you sell it, you're going to sell that. You're going to cut down the cherry tree that produced income every year, and you're going to get one big bucket of money. And then Uncle Sam's going to take his chunk out of that in long-term capital gains.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have this bucket of money left over that's got to pay for your lifestyle. And so that's the basis. We start with income first. And any good fiduciary is going to look at, what are your individuals? On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have some people that have, 15, 20 different income streams. They don't have an income problem, but they have a humdinger of a tax problem.
Yeah.
They've got all this money coming from qualified accounts, and they're pulling that out of their IRA and 401k, and they don't realize that that's all ordinary income.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take their Social Security, and then because they're making more money coming out of there, it increases their Medicare premiums. I mean, it's just this giant ball of fishing line that starts to look like this if you don't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's power of working with someone. You get to retire one time.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to somebody that's helped thousands of people retire with confidence.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so true. That's so true. Well, and it really is. I think we're definitely aligned on that, as far as with passive income coming in, because net worth is, it's something to brag about on paper, but you can't live on net worth. You can't eat your net worth if you don't have passive income.
Yes.
I would rather have 20 grand a month coming in, and a net worth of whatever, 2 million versus, have a net worth of 20 million with no passive income coming in monthly because yeah, that's just a number unless you can really live on it.
Yes.
So how about if you're good with this, let's paint a scenario, and I know it's going to vary based on the individual situation. But say we've got an average dentist they're 55 years old, they've got 500,000 in their 401k, maybe they own their home or close to owning their home, but that's it, no other investments, and they are in their practice. They're starting to slow down. They're hoping they can sell it, but they don't know if they can sell it or not. And they're getting a little nervous on retirement. But they come to see you, or which I know you're not doing individuals right now, but they come to see somebody with Boss Retirement to try and make a plan. What would be a typical scenario that might look like?
Yeah, that's great. And I think when you think about, I mean, here's one of the things just to put in perspective, even 500,000. And we talk about the American dream. The American retirement dream does not look in all of our media. And by the way, just as we go through this scenario, here's what my attorneys make me say. Obviously, your own individual situation is going to be unique. As we talk about this, I'm not giving you any financial advice here for somebody that has $500,000 in their 401k. Talk with your tax advisors, talk with all the professionals to be able to make an informed decision for your own individual. And that's, like you say, Garth, have a conversation with somebody that does this if you need some help.
Yes.
I think from the frame, just going back to what we talked about, the very first thing is we sit down with somebody. And by the way, we're going to offer a free copy of our book. It walks through and gives examples just like this.
Awesome.
Bob and Carol in the book is who they are. And, the goal is to take what you've already done really well and put it into a plan that's going to work for you instead of you working. And so the frame that I look at, we always start with, what are your concerns? So what are your fears? What are your goals? And what are your dreams? Okay. So fears, goals, and dreams, we're going to look at that. And when we have that conversation, it's really amazing because most people, when they have a conversation with a financial advisor, it typically goes right to, what do you have?
Yeah.
And they don't back and even look at that. And so like in this case, we're going to look at all of the assets. If I'm sitting down with this individual dentist and I'm going to ask, him or her, tell me what the long-term plan is with the business. What does the exit look like? Because the exit on the business is a big unknown at this. Let's say that you're producing $1 million a year in the practice. You're a solo producer, and you've got $300,000 worth of net income that you're going to allocate. Well, that's been pretty nice. Every year you show up at work and you've got this client base and you're able to go in there and solve problems and you get paid really well for it. Well, if we have 500,000, my first concern is going to be where are we going to match that lifestyle? Like, how are we going to make up this lifestyle at $300,000 a year? That's $25,000 a month. I need to know what's the long-term plan of the business. Maybe you're able to sell it. Maybe you're able to sell it and you're able to get, a multiple on that. 300,000, and you're able to have some nest egg to add to that 500,000 that's inside of the 401k. So that's the conversation that I would start. Then I would look at the house. It's almost paid off. This is one of the biggest assets in America right now. That I'll fast forward what a conference room looks like on the day that you die. We get the phone call from the family that passed away, and it's the kids. And do you know what they want to do on the first day? Not the day you die. But after the funeral and things settle down and they're settled on the estate.
Is it sell the house?
They're going to sell the house. They're going to sell it. And so, let's say that your house is worth $1 million. They're going to sell it and they're going to split the money. And so I think the house has to go. We put that in the legacy bucket on the blueprint because the house is an asset that maybe that's going to be something that you're going to want to utilize throughout your retirement. But I'm going to go right back to income. You've been making $25,000 a month. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Social Security that's coming in at $5,000 a month. What is it that your lifestyle really? Let's say the house is paid off, but you still have property taxes, you still have insurance. And that used to be like, that's not a big deal. With insurance rates and everything that's happening and property taxes and the way that that's right, that's becoming a bigger challenge in many, because now all of a sudden your property taxes and insurance look like a mortgage. And so your lifestyle really didn't change. But we're going to look at that. We're going to say, how do we build this income? Let's go back to that $10,000 a month. Where's that $10,000 going to come every single month? I'm going to start with wanting to maximize Social Security. And I'm going to go into that Okay. And I'm going to be like, okay, remember, you put all of this money in, it was pre-tax, it grew tax deferred. And now Uncle Sam wants his chunk. So every dollar that comes out of that, you're going to pay tax on. So I'm going to look at what are the strategies that we can use to minimize the tax on the 401k? And I'll tell you the ultimate goal. And obviously we don't have enough time to go through the full scenario, but that's just kind of the framework of how we
Yeah.
break that. And we're going to look at all of the pieces, everything that you've built and put together and say, how do we make the 500,000 work like it's $1 million? So now all of a sudden, if you can go out there and you can take that with the tax savings combination, the investment side and minimizing the tax, now you're having your money work for you instead of.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. With that said too, and I know the longer the ramp you've got, the better. But like you said, I agree with that too. And I think most dentists are the same way in their 30s and 40s. They're focused on paying off their student loans and buying a BMW and having a nice house, and they're making good money, but they're spending every penny of it, if not more sometimes. And so they didn't get going on their investments and retirement sooner. But say they're in that 55 range and they're hoping to be where they need to be around 65. Is that doable depending on what kind of decision they make for that 10-year mark? So they could continue to bring in $300,000 to $400,000 a year for 10 years after they meet with you guys. If they get a good plan, what would that look like to try and make a game plan to get to where they need to be?
Well, here's the best part is having a game plan and waking up at 55. I love it when people wake up at 55. When they walk in my door at 64 and they're going to retire next month, there's not a whole lot you can do because there's not a runway. I love the runway. The first thing that you're already doing is by listening to this podcast and listening to Garth, you are understanding passive income and those different things. My first thought is education, right? Understanding. And I think you're going to find out very quickly what your temper. There's some people that are okay with grabbing the bull by the horns and saying, okay, this 500,000 plus what the value of my practice is going to be. That's what I've got to make work. And here's a couple things that I would think about is I would think about how can I generate income with that 500,000, not investment growth, but how can I generate income that I can spend every single month? This is what I would call the do-it-yourself lifestyle person. That person, and it's probably only about 5% of the people realistically. 5% are going to say, hey, I'm going to take this. And if I can get a 10% rate of return on my 500,000 on a passive income generation, that's going to be $50,000. So it's $4,000 a month added to my Social Security. I just solved the problem almost all the way right there. And then I'm going to look at my practice. Here's one of the things that I love. Roll up is really a big deal in a lot of industry. It's a big deal in my industry right now. Private equity is rolling up every single RIA that they can possibly get their hands on. I've turned down 2 majors. And the reason why is because for me, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? I mean, I'm 52 years old. I still have a lot of fire in me and I just love solving problems. And I'm like, I've got a team of 80. I love my team. I love leading my team. What is it like if I'm not leading my team? What does that look like? And what does it look like when I'm not serving thousands of neighbors? I love talking about them. I love hearing their stories. I love hearing the successes. I love hearing their setbacks. I just love everything about it. And so, for me, I've made the decision. I'm not selling. I've turned down every private equity offer. Not that at some point I wouldn't, but for right now, my answer is no. And so I'm able to free myself from the business because I have an amazing team. And for the last 15 years, I've used a principle where I just delegate and elevate. I look at every quarter, I say, what is one thing that I refuse to do starting right ever again? And in the early days, as I was building my business, it was like, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore, right? I refused to answer the phone. And then it was, I refused to manage my calendar and I refused. And over, that period of time, you start getting rid of 1 to 2 items every 90 days of what you refuse to do. And then you hire somebody to take that over. That's how I built team. And I think that falls into how do you build your business? You're seeing that in your industry a lot, right? You hire other professionals that can come in and duplicate you. I realized really, really early that the math wasn't going to work very well. Me meeting individually and helping people individually. I wanted to do it on a bigger scale. For me to help thousands of people, I need technology and I need people to be able to make that happen. And so, if we take this back to this case here, I've got a business. One of the things that I always love is I love helping business owners just think about it a little bit differently. I think everyone gets excited about the big check, but you start looking at it and saying, okay, what if I, instead of sitting and working on the individual chairs or the series of chairs that I have in my dental practice, what if I spend my time on marketing and I build client base, which then I bring in another dentist and I fill up his calendar or her calendar. Now, you have dental chairs. I have conference rooms. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing, right? So when I started looking at that, all of a sudden I added I added another advisor when my schedule was so full and I couldn't possibly work any more hours. I added another advisor. And I learned this thing, Garth, that was it kind of hurt my ego a little bit. But what I really learned is people weren't like, I thought I was the only one that can give this advice. And I learned that, guess what? Most people just want to have their problem solved, regardless of who it is. And it hurt my ego for a little while. And then all of a sudden it clicked. And I'm like, this second, if I can spend my time on talking to more people, then they can take that over. And even if they're only 80% as good as I am, and then we'll work 90% and eventually, 100% of me over a series of years, now in that team of 80, we have amazing, amazing advisors on our team that have gone way past what I ever did as an individual advisor. And that's a fun process to watch. So in your practice, think about this differently. Let's say that by you not working individually, instead of selling to private equity, what if we could work on getting more people in there, training someone to come in and take over the role that I'm doing. And we can increase the gross revenue from 1 million to 1.5 million. And then from 1.5 to 1.75, and then from 1.75 to 2, and then from 2 to 2.5 million. Now all of a sudden, I have a lifestyle practice. It's the same playbook private equity's doing.
Right.
It's just reverse. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to control the playbook instead of, and that's actually exactly what I did. When I sat down, first offer, it was a 9-figure offer from private. I just looked at what their playbook was and I said, okay, well, if that's what you're going to do, why don't I just go do the same thing? But why don't I just do it? And so now all of a sudden you could solve your income problem if it's now $2 million a year in gross revenue. And, you've got 600,000, you can pay another dentist and you maintain the same lifestyle in the practice without selling the business. And so in other words, you don't cut the cherry tree down, it continues to go. Now that's an oversimplification, right? There's a lot, but what if with the expenses and not having you there, what if that still gave you an extra $100,000 income stream per year? It just came from the business, but it was like an annuity that kept paying out over a long period of time. That's powerful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the type of thinking that you can do. Now, for some people, that's more on the entrepreneurial side. Some people are like, I just want someone else to manage the money and figure this out. Awesome. Make sure you work with someone who's good.
No, that's awesome. And I love that in so many ways because you're right. It does vary on the individual and some would rather be entrepreneurial. Some would rather just have something steady and work for somebody else. But you got to get clear on your goals and your personality too. What can you do and what can you not do? But I love reversing the playbook. It doesn't have to be all or nothing either. I sell or I retire. You could essentially retire in practice almost. Live the lifestyle you want now, but just the practice can be open. You just don't have to be in the chair every day doing the casework, but you can still have income coming in. So yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
One other thing too that you said that really stood out to me the first time we were talking was contractual wealth. Can you explain that a little bit on what is contractual wealth and how can you create contractual?
Yeah. Well, let's just make it really personal here. When you have a dental practice, where does the majority of your revenue come from? Who pays the bill?
Are you talking about like the patient? The patient does, or
does the insurance company? Who pays the bill?
Yeah, patient or insurance, right? Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know the numbers on this, Garth, but on an average dental practice or an endodontist, how much of it is insurance paid versus individual paid, would you say?
Probably for most offices is probably at least 50-50, if not 70-30 coming from the insurance. Probably most practices, majority is coming from an insurance company.
Would you ever talk to a new dentist that was coming out and say, don't take any insurance?
No, because they would struggle.
It's so basic, right? It's the funding source. It's the funding source of your practice. And I find it really interesting that as we're building a dental practice or we're working for a dental practice, we have an employment contract or we have an insurance contract. We have contractual wealth. And then all of a sudden we go to retirement and we think, I don't need any contracts. I'm just going to hope that Wall Street produces this for me in my investment. I hope that I bought Apple or I bought Nvidia or about whatever, and it's going to just go over and it's going to be amazing.
With no down payments, right?
Here's my question that I always ask people. How much contractual wealth do you have for your retirement? Well, one contract is Social Security. If you're fortunate to have a pension, that would be a second contract, or you have a spouse that has a pension. That's a contractual obligation. When it comes to me and my money, my goal is to have the majority, at least 70% of my income. So it's almost the same as 50, 60, 70%, right? I want 70% of my income to be contractual. Here's what that means. If I'm going to look at it from when I go to retire, do I kind of want to hope my income's going to be there, or do I want to absolutely know it's going to be there, just like my paycheck was going to be there? Well, for most people, if they're building the optimal system of security, they want to know that it's going to be there. So what are some of the things that gives you contractual income? Well, after Social Security, which is contractual. And by the way, I want to make sure that I'm getting, I think in every industry, people start to realize, hey, there's another level of contract based off of production that can happen if you hit certain levels. In my Social Security, I want to make sure I get every single nickel out of that that's rightfully mine. I want to understand there's 2,728 rules in the Social Security handbook. And then there's tens of thousands of rules on the interpretations of those basic rules. I'm not going to leave that to chance. I'm going to go hire an expert to say, let's get the most out of Social Security. Then the next piece I'm going to look at, if I have an income gap, I want to make sure that that income gap is coming in. It's going to be, if I know that I need $10,000 a month, I want to know I want to not think about, hey, did the market do well this month or did it go down? So many people, they base their retirements like a roller coaster. They're just going up and down. So what am I going to use? I love annuities. Imagine going to a company that's been writing checks to people for 150, 160, 175 years. It's not their first rodeo. They know how to manage this. Now, are the returns going to be lower? Yeah. But guess what? It's going to show up just like your Social Security. Social Security is an annuity. So I love that contractual wealth. Certain types of life insurance can give you a tax-free income stream if it's set up correctly. I love that. It's a contract coming from an insurance company. So just like your insurance company is your contractual wealth of your practice, what's the contractual wealth that you have? And when it comes, the reason I say 70% is because I look at, okay, the 70% is going to cover all your basics. 30% is going to be your travel and the fun things that you do, the hobbies that you like to do. And that's where the other money is going to come from. I personally like, make sure that all of my basics are just covered. And whether you're going to have somebody do it for you or you're going to build it yourself, you need to cover that. You need to cover that $10,000 a month if that's your lifestyle, so that you know where that's coming and it's contracted. Now, after that, you need to worry about inflation. And what's inflation? We've seen this recently. Inflation for a long time was that people didn't even talk about it because it was so low. Well, all of a sudden we saw inflation that skyrocketed and it hasn't gone away.
Right.
And if you look at healthcare costs, if you look at what you're paying in a lot of areas, it's not going down. So the simple rule, if you use the 100-year historical average, if you're spending $10,000 a month and you just use the rule of 72, 3%, it's about every 20 years, you're going to need to double that. So if you retire at 60 and you're going to live until 100, you're going to have two doubles of expenses. And it's not all going to be because you're eating at Ruth Chris every night. It's just your property taxes are going to go up. Your insurance is going to go up. Your fuel costs, medical costs are going to go up. Have a plan for that. And if you're, here's the thing that I love about building your own passive. Garth, you've done a lot of real estate, and real estate is a great way to do it. Every time, let's say you have short-term rentals, you have a contract when that renter goes in, right? They sign a contract and agree. You have a tenant that comes into one of your properties. You have a contract.
Yes.
Success leaves clues. Tony Robbins says that. Success leaves clues. Well, if insurance provided you the cash flow with your dental practice, I think you want to have some insurance that's going to give you contractual wealth as well through retirement.
I love that. And just to clarify, would you include, like, if you've got a long-term rental, like a mobile home park or a short-term rental or your dental building that you're renting to somebody else, whether you practice it or not, would you consider that contractual wealth or
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Good.
Anything that has a contract that says, I'm going to pay you this much money, that's contractual.
Perfect.
And that's where real estate is a very, very, very powerful tool on that. And as you know, there's some ups and downs that happen even sometimes in real estate. Maybe it doesn't you thought it was going to be, but at least you have a contract that's enforceable. And that's the same thing that's what I want to have on my retirement. Make sure that I've got contractual wealth that's going to allow me to sleep at night.
Yes. And just to wrap up, because I want to be respectful of your time, Ryan, our Elite Mastermind group, bigger than just the podcast community, had some specific questions I wanted to throw out there if you can.
Yeah,
let's do it. Clarify for both of us, and I 100% agree, this is for educational purposes only. Do not take this as legal advice or financial advice, anything else. We're two buddies shooting the bull, and you can take from it what you want. One of the questions was, what's your thoughts on whole life versus universal life for life insurance if you're going to try and do it for like a cash value, infinite baking type strategy? What's your thoughts on No.
Yeah, if you're going to use it for infinite banking, I like whole life as the base for that. If you're going to use it as an investment vehicle and you're not going to do it for a long term, you're pulling money in and borrowing from it. I like indexed universal life because it gives you the ability to have a potential higher return. You still have access to the cash value, but if in whole life, you really need two things to make it work. You've got to have what I call the internal rate of return, which is going to be 4 to 5%. And then you can have the external return that you use on your outside project. For indexed universal life, you put it in the S&P 500. You can't lose money. That's the indexed portion that protects you from that. So in a down year where you have we had a few years ago, markets down over 20%, you don't lose anything. You don't gain anything, but that zero really helps you continue to compound your wealth. And I think over time, that gives you the potential to have a higher rate of return without doing outside projects. So those that don't want to do any outside projects, probably.
Just from my own knowledge, would you do both? Like if you had the option, would you do an infinite banking, or a whole life and a universal life, or would you do one or the other?
You could definitely do both. I think it's just going to come down to preference on what you want to do. I have all three.
Yeah, yeah.
I find index, and I also have private placements,
Mhm.
which is a completely different level, but a variable base that allows you to have tax-free growth on investment in any category. I just think it's, you want to talk to professional, what's going to make the most sense for your individual situation.
That makes sense. That makes sense. No, thank you. Another question was, do you think a 401k is all you need, or do you need other vehicles besides your 401k? Or what would you recommend other vehicles besides just your 401k?
I think if you're going to be a, passive, you're never going to go out and do outside projects. I think the 401k, letting it compound and grow could be a strategy for you. I think that most people listening to the call, that's not going to be the way that they're doing it. Right. On those that are listening to the podcast, they're active and going out. I don't think a 401k is going to get you. It's the numbers are in and it's not good. When I say, on a TV show, if you saved at least $300,000 for retirement, I just excluded 9 out of 10 retire. That means 300,000 at retirement. And that's a 62-year. And so we've got a real challenge. If I raise that to 500,000, it gets down into that top less than 5% that have saved more than that. So, that's the retirement crisis. And then on top of that, you're just hoping whatever index fund you pick, or if you have a manager that's going to solve all the problems. I will tell you, if they don't have planning, if you just have a portfolio and not a plan, your likelihood of success is going to go down.
It's crazy. That was, I remember you saying that before. I mean, in the richest country in the world, people working for 30, 40, 50 years, and the majority don't even have a few 100,000 saved. It's crazy. It's sad, but reality.
Yep.
Let's see. Another question was, if you could talk about bonds, or just non-stock investments, what would be considered less risky investments in bonds, or any recommendations for investing in bonds?
Great. This is a loaded question, man. This is like,
Yeah, right. Right.
Everyone always used to think of bonds as the safe haven. We saw that go the other way. Interest rates and bond yields work opposite of each other. So, when interest rates go up, bond yields go down, what you can get out of a bond. And so we saw just in, the last 5 years that we had a year the stock market was down, and normally that would have been a safe haven for bonds, but also bond lost significant value. So when you look at that, one thing I would consider, I would look at the bond alternatives.
Okay.
For example, a fixed indexed annuity could be a good replacement for a bond. Here's the difference. It's going to protect you from the downside. So if the market crashes and goes down, you're not going to lose, but you're going to have, returns that are going to look like bond returns, 4 to 5%, really 4 to 6% is what I would say in that bond. I like that scenario because you've got some downside protection there. Again, you've got some contractual pieces that help you maintain your wealth.
That makes sense. Another question was, if you're considering investing in hedge funds or other funds, let's see. I guess maybe the question is, are these funds tax delayed, or maybe it depends on where you put them, and then also like government sponsored real estate funds. I guess maybe just in general, your thoughts on different hedge funds, and maybe any recommendations on structuring them to minimize taxes or eliminate taxes.
Well, I think this is a good spot, Garth, to talk about the 3 tax buckets.
Perfect.
I think so many people skip over the structure of where their investments are. Simplicity wise, there's really 3 tax buckets. There's your taxable bucket. So it's always taxed. That's going to be your 1099s that you get every year. You've got to pay tax and you get a 1099. That's going to be your bank CDs, things like that generate a 1099. And then you have your tax deferred bucket. Your tax deferred bucket, your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s. I just call it the alphabet soup.
Yeah.
Those are really not tax, that's tax deferral. And now as we look back on the experiment since the 401ks were started, most people are going to be that have saved significantly are going to be in a higher tax bracket, when the myth, what we were told, is that we would be in a lower tax bracket. And so it wouldn't matter that you're taking the money out when it was tax deferred. The opposites happen. And then the last bucket is tax free. So, or what I would call taxed rarely. This is going to be your tax-free municipal bonds, but you want to just make sure that you invest in a municipality that's steady. I mean, we're seeing bankruptcies with municipalities that we never thought that would even happen before. And so you want to make sure that's solid. It's tax-free, but if it goes to zero, it doesn't matter. And then there's your Roth and your Roth-like accounts. So life insurance, the whole life, the indexed life, those are also, if structured properly, can come up tax free as well. So I think if you look at your structure, you've got, what do I want to make sure that my income looks like? I would want to try to get as much as my income in retirement to be tax free. So that would be the goal. It takes a lot of planning to do that.
Would that be like the mega Roth IRA type thing, like paying the taxes up front on a 401k and transferring into a Roth IRA, take the tax hit that year, and then from then on it's tax free? Is that kind of the thought?
Yeah, that's one strategy. Or, here would be an alternative strategy. You fund, say, a whole life policy or an index universal life policy with post-tax dollars, and then it becomes tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawal, as long as you've got that structured properly, which really powerful, really powerful. And there's all types of nuances and different strategies.
Yeah.
Very powerful strategy.
That's awesome. You've dropped so much gold on this, Ryan. I can't thank you enough, my friend, really. And before we end, what questions should I have asked that I didn't, or any other, I guess, parting thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, here's what I'd like to leave you with. Number one is, retiring successfully doesn't happen by accident. It starts by having a plan. And, Garth, I think if you're in the camp that you want to go out and do this by yourself, I absolutely know you can, because I've lived, right? Garth, you've lived. But the disclaimer I put on there is, now you have the responsibility to get the education, to do the due diligence on the deals, and it becomes a full-time job. And so the thing that I always like for individuals to consider as well is, where do I want to invest my time, my effort, and my energy? And that's going to be different for every single one of us. And if you're like, hey, I don't want to put my time, effort, and energy into the money side, then you probably ought to go through the process of finding someone that can help. There's lots of great practitioners out there, just like there's good dentists and bad dentists. There's good financial advisors and there's bad financial advisors. Spend the time to do some due diligence. If you're going to hire somebody, I would invite you, we've got a great resource out there. It's my latest book. It's The Boss Retirement Blueprint, Your Guide to a Secure and Independent Retirement. You can get a free copy of it, digital side, or you can go buy it on Amazon if you want a hard copy. It's just, you go to bossretirement.com/free book, bossretirement.com/free book. And download that. If you want to have an additional conversation, we've got an amazing team that's here to support you, and they could do a free consultation, just have a conversation, understand your scenario. We help families all over the country retire with confidence. So it's been fun, Garth.
That's so cute. Oh, thank you so much, Ryan. That was amazing. Thanks for your generosity on that too, because I'm gonna be downloading that and actually probably buy the hard copy too. So I've got both. So thanks for offering that. One final question before we part. When you think of lifestyle freedom, what comes to mind for you when you think of lifestyle?
I think of my good friend Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. He says most people think what they really want is money. But when you boil it down, there's 4 freedoms. It's the freedom of time, freedom of money, the freedom of relationship, and the freedom of purpose to do what you want to do and how you want to do it, aligned with the core values that you have. And that's what I think of when I think of lifestyle free. It's those 4 freedoms. And of course, it takes money to do that. But when, at this point in my career, I could have cashed out a long time ago. I could have been independent for my family, but my mission is really 3 frameworks right now. I want to help people have personal freedom framework financially. I want to have families have a family freedom framework, and I want communities to have a community freedom framework, because this country, what it was built on, and the founding principles of freedom. That's why this is the greatest land in the history of the world. Despite all of our problems, it's a great place to be. So love sharing this, and love your work and what you're doing, Garth. Keep it up.
I can't thank you enough, my friend. Thank you so much, Ryan. This was amazing. We'll put that link in the show notes too. Highly recommend all of you to download that. I mean, this is, again, legit. Practice what you preach. This is the such a straightforward concept, but I should say such a complex, but you make it so straightforward. And I love the way you guys break things down with boss retirement. So thank you so much, my friend. And thanks for
Thanks,
being on the
Garth.
call. Okay.
You bet.
Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.